Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Line of Scrimmage. Today's episode is none other than the SEC conference rankings, at least the top six. That is Minx. I'm Montana. This is Beyond the Line of Scrimmage. Let's get into it.
We spent a good half hour after we sorted out who would be kind of in our top 10. I think this is going to be by far the toughest out of any conference that we do. This is the closest that the SEC has felt like it could be in years. There's no team that is truly just like they're going to run the table, pencil them in. It feels as wide open as ever. There's a couple teams obviously they're going to be in the talk. In terms of who could crack the top six, there is as many teams as I think there's ever been that have a reasonable shot. There's so many question marks with the top teams and those teams that are potentially in the mix there. It's just completely wide open.
So, number 6, as decided on by both of us, A&M of Texas, our number 6 team. Mike Elko and company, 8-5. Last year, they were the highest scoring team in the conference last year. Did you know that? You bet you did not. Okay. In conference play, they averaged 29 a game. That was league best last year. They returned Marcel Reed. Love him or hate him. 15 touchdowns last year, 6 interceptions, 1,800 yards, rushed for 500. I think there's a lot left to this guy's game. He's a freshman. He's going to be a sophomore this year. I think he has room to develop, and he's going to develop under Mike Elko. You bring in the star wide receiver from North Carolina State. Didn't have too big of a year last year, but he is a great wide receiver. Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver from Mississippi State. You return your running back, Le'Veon Moss, 700 yards. He also missed 5 games last year, so a lot more room on that offense to build from. Just based on the style of play, the way Mike Elko likes to play, I think they're going to be just fine as far as running the ball. They should have one of the best O-lines in the country. Trey Zune, all-conference tackle. Chase Bonsidis, Armaj Reed Adams. They're going to compete for these all-conference honors. And, of course, Mark Nabu Jr., the center, back from an ACL tear last year. So, bringing back a lot of experience. They've been through the war. They've been through the trenches together. So, I think they should be decent on offense, at least a little better than they were last year. I think that was their Achilles heel last year.
I'm really excited to see what Mike Elko does with this team going into next year. I'm huge on Mike Elko. Texas A&M, I was literally debating putting Texas A&M too, because I was just going through their entire team, seeing how much they returned, and just looking at the upside of what they could do. And I was like, this could be a team that could maybe finally get over that hump and just sneak by. They don't have the most difficult schedule in the world in the SEC.
Yeah.
It's definitely difficult. I mean, you host Florida, go to LSU, you get Mizzou at home, South Carolina, then you go to Texas. Obviously, there's just too many losable games in there for A&M that I don't see them just getting over. That would keep them out. But defensively, too, one of the strengths of A&M that has always been one of the strengths. They returned 7-11 starters from last year, including the entire linebacker room and 4 of the 5 starting DBs. And that includes all-conference, all-SEC player Will Lee III, and they also returned nickelback Tyreek Chappell. Pass defense last year was pretty poor. It was 13th in the SEC. They were giving up a lot of yards. That's where they were really getting killed. That was their Achilles heel of the defense. They did bring in a couple of depth pieces in Jordan Shaw from Washington and Julian Humphrey from Georgia to help bolster up that defense.
As far as defense goes, you hit a lot of it on the head. Return Will Lee from injury, Tyreek Chappell, like you said. Jordan Shaw, Julian Humphrey, those guys, not a lot of game time. So, we got A&M at 6, obviously. So there's got to be some holes somewhere for them. And I think defensively, they got to shore up that defense. Mike Elko's got to do something there. Cassius Howell had 4 sacks last year. Nobody else had more than 2.5. Okay? Mm-hmm. They had guys like Nick Scorton on defense last year. Mm-hmm. And they didn't have more than 2.5 sacks. So somebody's got to do something around there. Run defense remains a problem. You got to hope that their linebackers, improve in spring ball, improve in summer, improve in fall camp. And then obviously the schedule, like you said, at Notre Dame, that a loss, probably. You're hosting Florida, probably a loss. You're at Texas, probably a loss. So
you also go to LSU, and Missouri.
Yes.
Missouri, I'd say they could beat Missouri. Then you host South Carolina, and who knows? Like I said, that's a team that has potentially great upside, but also just who knows what South Carolina is going to be like this
Yes.
season.
And let's not remiss. They were technically a win against Texas away from making the SEC championship game last year.
And the
So,
playoff, wasn't it?
well, yeah, I mean, technically it would have been the playoff probably. They got to fill the holes on defense, wide receiver room, a little bit of a question there. So that's why Texas A&M is at number 6.
Moving into our number 5 spot, we've got LSU, and this is a team that a lot of people are extremely high on, and I'm personally one of the few that's not fully sold on it. I should be sold on Garrett Nussmeier. Maybe I haven't watched him enough. I don't know. There's just something about me that I'm not fully sold on. Threw for 4,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Those are pretty fantastic numbers. Obviously, LSU's offense is it's just the best year in, year out. It's an explosive offense. It's always going to get results done. I don't know. For me, I'm not fully sold on Garrett Nussmeier for whatever reason. Yeah, I'm really willing to let that be changed this year. Getting a lot of Heisman buzz going into the year. Reason for their hype as well this year. Obviously, you have a senior star quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier, but LSU this offseason did bring in the top portal class. Things that Florida State and Ole Miss have found success with in the past few seasons. Bringing that top class, getting guys that have produced elsewhere, plug in your holes that you need. Two of the biggest things they did bring in Berrien Brown from Kentucky and Oklahoma transfer Nick Anderson were their two biggest offensive gets this past season. Berrien Brown, who was Kentucky's star receiver, got injured last year, had 361 yards, 3 touchdowns on 29 catches. Nick Anderson, who was out last year as well. Both these guys suffered injuries throughout last year. Nick Anderson didn't play in 2024. But in 2023, it's almost 800 yards, 10 touchdowns.
You kind of hit most of it on the head. I think the question on offense is going to be their offensive line. They lose Will Campbell and Emory Jones to the NFL draft. Harlem Berry is their running back, who was the top-ranked high school running back last year, but that means he also hasn't played a snap in the SEC or, he hasn't had any playing time whatsoever.
And last season, like LSU, they did struggle on the ground quite a bit.
Yes.
Well, I would say struggle, but I mean, they average about 115 yards per game. It's not great. Granted, you've got Garrett Nussmeier slinging the rock, so obviously,
yeah,
that picks that up there. But still, I mean, you need to have someone step up and take control of that room.
Yeah.
If they really want to elevate their team, you can't just be throwing the ball over and hoping you're gonna win.
Obviously, the big name on defense, Harold Perkins Jr., back again for his 3rd year. Had a breakout year his freshman year. I don't know really what happened last year. I think he's kind of out of position.
Yeah, then he tore his ACL.
Okay,
well, he was some of that, and then he tore his ACL. There's a whole bunch of stuff.
So a little bit of this, a little bit of that. He's going to play their star position, okay? Star in the world of football is like your hybrid linebacker, safety, corner, not corner, but like your outside linebacker type deal. They return Jacobian Guillory from injury last year. They landed Jack Pyburn from Florida, Patrick Payton from Florida State.
Patrick Payton was a huge pickup.
Yes. Whit Weeks, their top tackler, expected to be ready for week 1. They got some fresh faces at corner. That's probably where they're going to see some issues. The corner I'm referencing here is Virginia Tech transfer Mansour Delane and their freshman DJ Pickett, who was a 5-star. He's 6'4", lengthy, do it all, but he's got some experience to gain.
If you're going to start somebody,
yeah,
and you got to start a freshman. It's a 6'4" freshman, 5-star. Yeah. Oh man, that's the word. Schedule wise, you go to Clemson to open up the season. That's gonna be an extremely, extremely difficult game. You get Florida at home. You go to Ole Miss, who's projected to be a bit down this year. You host South Carolina, host A&M. You go to Alabama and Oklahoma. Like I said, you get all the difficult ones or the sneaky surprise teams at home. You get Alabama and Oklahoma on the road. I mean, Alabama's gonna be tough. Oklahoma, they could definitely get it done there. But I think this is a team that should be able to get through that fairly unscathed, maybe 9-3, and then just fight and get to that playoff positioning, which if they're 9-3, I think that they'll have a realistic shot of getting into.
This is kind of the make it break it year for Brian Kelly. And I'm of the opinion that LSU is not this championship or bust program. Not saying they can't win championships, but having this idea where every single year it has to be championship or bust is just kind of ludicrous. I think Brian Kelly has all the tools to kind of rebuild year after year, and it may not lead to a SEC championship or college football playoff national championship, but it's still every single year LSU is reloading. You know what I mean? Like, even if they lose Garrett Nussmeier, like, you're still going to have a name in the portal next year pop up all of a sudden. You know what I mean? You're fine. You know what I mean? Like, it's not over after that. Whereas with Coach O, after they won the championship, what happened in 2020? You know what I mean? Like, it kind of hit a downhill slide, and then 2021 happened, and then boom, he's gone. Brian Kelly is on a higher tier than Coach Ed Orgeron. I don't know if he's better yet, but I do think Brian Kelly has LSU playing at a higher level every single year, if that makes sense.
At least a higher floor.
Yes, a higher floor. Yes, that's kind
Mhm.
of what I was referencing. So I just don't believe in this like hocus pocus, like you got to win a national championship or you're done.
Mhm.
You're LSU. You're not Alabama. You're not Georgia. Like, that's not the standard. Although you'd like it to be the standard, that's just not what it is. Coming in at number 4 after LSU, or I guess it'd be before LSU, we have Georgia. Do not get mad at us, okay? This is probably the toughest stretch of 3 teams on this list that I've ever seen. Like, schedule-wise, they're all pretty similar. Coaching-wise, somewhat similar. I mean, they all got talent. They're all neck and neck. Minx, explain to us why Georgia is at number 4.
You got perennial power here at number 4, which is you just don't expect to see this. But there was so many question marks regarding Georgia that I am putting them down here, that we are putting them down here. There's things about this team that I don't doubt, but there are tons of things that I cannot buy into. Every single person's eyes this year for Georgia is going to be on Gunnar Stockton and the offense. We saw it last year. When Carson Beck went down, Gunnar Stockton came in, and it looked like a wounded deer. Bambi got hit by the car. Bambi was already hit by the car. Well, actually, no, Bambi's mom got hit by the car. Now Bambi just got hit too by that same car that came back. They were able to get by. He lived. But as soon as they got into the playoff, well, boom, boom, here comes a hunter, you know, semi-automatic rifle piping Bambi down. And that's kind of what it felt like. Notre Dame just constricted them. I mean, obviously there's an elite defense, but from what we've seen, we've only gotten to see Gunnar Stockton against elite defenses, to be fair. But at the same time, it just didn't look great. Didn't look great. Nothing that moved you, at least in my opinion. So there's so many questions on this team. He enters the first year, lots of questions around Gunnar Stockton himself. Is he ready to be the quarterback one? Georgia didn't go out after anybody else. So Georgia, the coaching staff, Kirby's smart, and the coaching staff believes in him. They didn't try to go out after any other quarterback. They knew that Gunnar Stockton was going to be their guy. Their offensive line, I believe they're replacing 4 out of 5 guys with the receiver play. That was probably the biggest thing last year, was just receiver play was not there. Not at the level to win a national championship, and certainly not how Georgia needed these guys to be producing. What they do this offseason? They went out, probably got the most electric playmaker in college football, Zachariah Branch. In 2 seasons at USC, he's got 820 yards, 5 touchdowns. The numbers don't wow you like, oh, this guy's a star. But this dude is literally a star. I mean, he is going to produce highlights. And like I said, he's an electric playmaker. When it happens, you'll know, whether it's on kick return, punt returns, as a gadget player, or just literally just finding something to happen. They just need a guy to make a play. They don't need someone to be, throwing up 1,100 yards through the air. They don't need that. They just need someone who can make a play, get a boatload of momentum, and then boom, let Georgia do what Georgia needs to do. They got Dylan Bell at wide receiver, and then probably the biggest star on the offense is going to be Oscar Delp in terms of playmakers and names that you're going to hear this year. This year, they're replacing 4 of the 5 starting offensive linemen, so they're gonna have to really prove themselves and start gelling together early in the season. Obviously, it's Georgia. They've got talent on the line. I don't doubt that those players are talented. It's just everything is so new on the offensive side of the ball, and there were so many question marks last season, especially near the end of the year, that you can't just mask over those and just say, "Oh, it's Georgia, they'll be fine."
I mean, I think this offense has a chance to be a little more dynamic
I agree.
than it has been in years past, especially with Zachariah Branch, obviously,
Mhm.
Noah Thomas, Colby Young, some transfer wide receivers.
Yep.
Obviously, that offensive line, you and I both know the biggest question, especially with how the way that Georgia plays. So, I mean, I like Nate Frazier. I just don't know if the offensive line likes Nate Frazier. You know what I mean? Are they going to block the hell out of, you know what I mean? So,
We're both big on continuity
yes,
in terms of who's and it's not even just necessarily just playing together. Obviously, that's probably the biggest factor, but people who have been playing
yes,
is
experience matters.
our biggest thing.
Yep.
And when you've got 4 brand new faces in on the offensive line on a team that wants to win a championship, that's a lot that has to be woven in together in
Yes.
such a short amount of time. I don't doubt them being able to do that. It's just I'm not certain of it. And with the offensive struggles they had last year, again, they just have to prove it to me. I'm not going to doubt them. I think Georgia could definitely win a national championship. They've got the team to do that. But in terms of how I'm feeling so far in the offseason, it's just not a team that I'm willing to put my money on or go all in on.
Defensively, they return 3 D linemen: Christian Miller, Jordan Hall, Xavier McLeod. Okay. I think edge is their biggest question mark. Gabe Harris, probably their number one guy, missed the spring. Should be ready to go, obviously, but you never know with these injuries in football. They're 4 or 5 deep at linebacker: CJ Allen, Waylon Wilson. I feel like Georgia's secondary is always going to be good. Okay. Dalen Everett, KJ Bolden. Okay. Georgia's defense, we know they're going to be good. The question is, can they be elite? And then the question is, can they save their offense enough to win these games? We're going to bring it up right now. The schedule is why we probably would pick them to be number 4 instead of, in the top 3 or top 2. At Tennessee, week 3, Alabama, week 5, at Auburn, week 7, Ole Miss, week 8, Florida, week 10, Texas, week 12, and then at Mercedes-Benz Stadium against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. And I have a good feeling that Georgia Tech is going to be good this year. All the rest of these games, like we saw it last year, Georgia, like it's not this cut and dry, like Georgia's number 1, everybody else fall in line. You know what I mean? Like they lose one of these linebackers, they lose one of these D linemen, they lose one of these new old linemen. Like all of a sudden, you got a massive hole because, as we know with NIL and transfer portal, depth is the biggest issue with these top teams. So if you get injured, all of a sudden you got a hole, and then all of a sudden you're losing these games that you shouldn't lose, or you're going to 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech. And it's just like that's kind of what we're predicting here, placing Georgia at 4. Do you have anything else to add?
So one note I had on the team to kind of summarize it is that the team's lost a bulk of its major contributors for the past few seasons, but it's time for the new generation of Georgia football to kind of step up to the plate and take it by the throat. They got a lot to prove, and this team's gonna be hungry. I mean, obviously, you lose to Notre Dame after losing in the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. They're pissed. This team's pissed. They want to be better.
We both said like Kirby Smart lead this team to an SEC championship again, and we wouldn't blink an eye. You know what I mean? Like coming in at number 3 again. Do not get mad at us. This is the toughest 2 to 4 of all time, even tougher than the Big 12 that we had last week. Alabama, number 3. Okay, Kalen DeBoer, 9-4 last year. Offensively, bring in Ryan Grubb. You finally get Ryan Grubb. I think he was trying to get it in there last year. Got a call from the NFL. He picked up the phone. Turns out, grass is not always green on the other side. Okay, Ryan Grubb, you're finally in Tuscaloosa. They got a big decision at quarterback to make. Ty Simpson, Austin Mack, or Keelan Russell. Sounds like Ty Simpson is leading the charge there. I'm not too sold on him. They return, obviously, the cover of EA Sports College Football 26, along with Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams. What a stud that guy is. 8 touchdowns. He had 2 rushing touchdowns last year. And they also returned Jeremy Bernard, who had 2 touchdowns last year. They bring in Isaiah Horton from Miami. He had 5 touchdowns last year. So you're also adding one of the best offensive lines in the country with all the experience that they have. Proctor, Brailsford, Roberts. Offensively, they just got to figure out that quarterback situation, and they should be good. I don't know what you think about that. I don't even know what their running back room looks like.
They got Jam Miller.
Okay. Question is at quarterback, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then obviously staying healthy on the offensive line. Otherwise, GG.
I think quarterback play is going to be really what dictates this season. Obviously, that's with every team, but I think Alabama especially, I mean, this team itself can win a national championship. Going through the squad, though, I also feel with that O-line being as experienced as they are, how much they return. And with the quarterback play, everyone in there is unproven. I mean, we don't know what we're going to get without that. So that's why we've kind of had to limit ourselves on what we think with Alabama. Defensively, year 2 under Kane Womack. Last year, they showed a little bit of signs of struggle, a little bit against like Vanderbilt, Tennessee, but as well, the offense also kind of let them down in those games. Other than Vanderbilt, was just a bad game. Last year, they returned 6 starters from last season, led by Deontay Lawson at linebacker, Damani Jackson at corner. They returned Tim Keenan as well, and those will be probably your biggest stars on the defense. You're going to keep an eye out for. Overall, I like I said, I think this team should take a huge step forward. I think defensively, I don't think we'll see too many issues.
Like you said, they should be fine. I think returning most of their starters from last year, I think their defense got better as the year wore on. Deontay Lawson, Keon Sapp, both good players that will be back. Okay. Alabama's defense is not going to fall off. It hasn't fallen off. Even in that like Oklahoma game, like they kind of got hosed a little bit when they tried mounting a comeback. So I'm not too worried about this Kalen DeBoer experiment. I know you expect championships in Tuscaloosa, but it will be fine. You just got to get right at quarterback. It should be noted that he didn't even have an entire portal to use. Okay, he got hired after the fact and then had like 3 days to use the portal. So, like, this whole nonsense, like, he can't do it or he's not Nick Saban. Obviously, nobody else is Nick Saban. But he now had the spring portal. He had the winter portal. He has spring practice with this team. They should be ready to go. They should not be as inconsistent as they were last year. But with that being said, if they do endure some injuries in some places, they're still going to be on that edge of like, okay, Oklahoma randomly could beat them, any of these SEC teams. So the schedule, I think, is a great reason why they are as high as they are. They open up the season at Florida State. Not too high on Florida State. Their quarterback's doing a lot of chirping right now. He's going to get himself killed. Wisconsin, they got Wisconsin week 3 at Georgia week 4. That's probably the game you're looking at right there. And then they have a stretch of Tennessee at South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma, and then the Iron Bowl is at Auburn. So, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if Alabama fell, if they were like number 5, number 4. But I believe that just with all the returning experience in this team, they just got to figure it out at quarterback. Kalen DeBoer is a hell of a quarterback coach. Ryan Grubb, great OC, as we know. I think they can get it done. That's why Alabama's at number 3 for me. Number 2, I feel like might surprise some people. Who do we got at number 2?
Other than the Florida Gators and DJ Lagway. Billy Napier, you're... What?
That's just insane to fucking say out loud.
I mean, who else would have this? I mean, look, we ourselves also, we don't want to just go, oh, this team's predicted to be here, predicted to be
Yeah.
here, predicted to be here. We want to have fun and just
Yeah.
we're willing to throw out a few flyers. Like I'm willing to be wrong on Florida. Like I think it could go wrong, but I also think it could go insanely well with the overall roster talent that they have. You got DJ Lagway, who is going to become one of the stars of the sports, whether you like it or not. I don't care what's going to happen. We've been talking about him last year after his spring game with Florida. We were raving about this kid who was just an absolute weapon. And he's caught Heisman buzz. They went 6-1 with him as a starter to end the season last year. They ended hot with him. They had Graham Mertz starting over him. Put in DJ Lagway, team catches fire. Threw for 2,000 yards last year. His touchdown interception ratio was 12 touchdowns, 9 picks. Not great. That's awful. I mean, that's pretty bad. You do not want that as a starting quarterback. He was a true freshman last year.
Yeah.
I'm going to give him grace. As a true freshman being thrown into a situation, a gauntlet of the schedule that they had, and going 6-1 while doing that, by the way, I'm taking that. Offensively as well, you return 2 great running backs. Jaden Ball, powerful rusher at 673 yards, 7 touchdowns. Jacoby Jackson's also going to share the load with him, 509 yards and 7 touchdowns. They're going to be a great run team. Wide receiver might be the offense's biggest question because they don't have like a true star out there. What they do have is a top 50 recruit, 6'4" Dallas Wilson, who's a highly rated 4-star last year. Some people, not me, but I've seen different sources kind of compare him a little bit to a similar frame of Jeremiah Smith. I'm not gonna do anything with that until I see him play. And they also joins sophomore Eugene Wilson, who was a good stud for them. He also joins the receiving core of Eugene Wilson, who's a sophomore, was a stud for them last year, and then UCLA transfer J-Michael Sturdivant to help create an explosive pass offense, which I think this can, especially if Dallas Wilson is a stud and gets valuable playing time and can be like Jeremiah Smith, all the better. We got a 6'8" tight end, Hayden Hansen, my boy. Get some basketball shoes on.
Yeah.
Learn. Get it. You don't even need to get it. You're a wing,
Hit
man.
the court, bro.
Hit the court, man.
Wrap it up.
Probably the biggest thing that I'm the most high on. This is probably the best room in the entire team, I'd say, is the O-line filled with veteran experience. You've got you got an All-American on there in center, Jake Slaughter, who's a senior. 4 returning starters. 3 of them are seniors. 1's a junior. This team is just, especially offensively, is just riddled with NFL talent and bodies.
Yep.
And we look at national champions. We look at teams with success. You need NFL talent. You need NFL-ready guys that are going to make plays, that are just going to make things happen.
I will say one little nugget that I found about Dallas Wilson.
Yep.
He caught 10 catches in spring practice.
Mm-hmm.
You want to know why that is significant?
Why's that?
It's actually a record. They're keeping track of records in spring practice. Obviously, it sounds stupid. Like, okay, cool. He just caught 10 catches. Like, cool. But that also means that he's getting targeted as a freshman more often than anybody else. So if that tells you one thing, it's that Dallas Wilson's coming to play ball. And also another name on the list that we should keep track of, Burnell Brown. Okay, he's a freshman, wide receiver as well. Let's keep track of his name. Like you mentioned with the offensive line, you and I talk about it all the time. Experience. Okay, Austin Barber, 26 starts. Damian George, 25 starts. Jake Slaughter, All-American. Okay. It doesn't really get much better than that. Okay. Defensively, they weren't bad last year. Total 38 tackles for loss, 19 sacks, 12 takeaways. They returned Caleb Banks, 3.5 sacks. LJ McCray, who was the nation's top-rated D lineman last year. They returned Jamari Lyons from a broken leg. Sophomore Miles Graham, poised for a breakout season. Grayson Howard at linebacker as well. He's going to be a junior. Devin Moore, all SEC tools. He was held back by injuries last year.
You're forgetting a big name. Oh.
What?
Go for it.
And of course, the team's leading tackler at safety, Jordan Castell.
You're also, you're missing one of the biggest names too.
Wait, who did I miss?
Tyreek Sapp.
Oh,
star edge rusher. I believe he's an edge rusher.
Yes. Yeah.
Tyreek Sapp, 46 tackles, 7 sacks,
Okay.
and he took over the defense
Yep.
in dominating fashion to end the season. Went on an absolute
Yeah.
tear at the end of last year. And this defense, it's loaded. It's loaded. And also a thing to note too, we talk about experience. Guess what? I know obviously it doesn't matter how old you are, how much experience you have. Shut up. 10 of the 11 players that are projected to be starting on defense are juniors or seniors. Just saying, man. Like,
Yep.
I love that. I love that. Like, these are dudes that have been in college for 3 to 4 years. They know what they're doing. They know how to read defenses, or they know how to read offenses. They know how to play. They can gel a lot quicker than you can with just throwing in a, freshman middle linebacker trying to learn how to lead a team while also learning how to read an offense properly and adjust to the pace of play at the college level. That is huge. 10, 11 returning players, all juniors or seniors, all but one. His team is riding off a huge, huge surge of momentum to end the last season, which, like I said, I believe they went 6-1 ever since they put in DJ Lagway. Like I said, they helped keep Billy Napier off the hot seat, who everyone thought that he was canned by the middle of the season last year. When you look at the team, it is poised to make a deep run, and they have a genuinely realistic shot to make the playoff if they can stay healthy. Obviously, big question mark this offseason was DJ Lagway with the shoulder, obviously injured, very, very limited, wasn't throwing. That's my big question mark. If DJ Lagway's not there, dude, you can throw Florida down to maybe 6. But if DJ Lagway's healthy, oh, this is a team that can make noise. Schedule-wise, it's not the easiest schedule. They've got a pretty damn difficult schedule.
Yep.
But when I looked through it, I was like, dude, there are so many teams on here that I have question marks or that I think that they can just outright beat regardless, that I trust them. So, to open up SEC play, you got LSU. They go to Miami. Miami doesn't have a home field. I have question marks over Miami all the time. They're going to be a good team. I think Florida will probably be the better team this year. They host Texas. They go to A&M. They host Georgia. And they go to Ole Miss, host Tennessee, and they host Florida State at the end of the year. Obviously, one of the most difficult schedules in the league. But like I said, with all those teams, you look through that schedule, you got, obviously Texas, LSU, those are going to be insanely tough. You go to A&M. A&M, can they really put it all together and actually get over the hump that they are never able to get over? They host Georgia at home, the toughest team on the schedule. You host them at home, and they have question marks for all over the offense. You go to Ole Miss. Ole Miss is plugging in a whole bunch of new guys. We don't know what Ole Miss is going to be. You get Tennessee at home. Again, really good squad, but again, a lot of question marks surrounding the offense. Replacing Dylan Sampson, replacing Nico Imalave. And then you host Florida State to the end of the year, which Florida State's Florida State. Like, you go 2-10 last year. I'm not really worried about that. Obviously, this isn't an easy schedule, but with all those teams having such huge question marks around them and seeing how experienced that this Florida team is, I value that a whole bunch.
Let's not forget how dangerous the swamp is. So we had Texas number 1. Okay, remember, this is conference standings. This is not power rankings. Okay, so Florida technically can afford to drop 2 of these games. Obviously, you don't want to. The goal is not to lose, obviously. But hypothetically, they lose to Texas at home. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, 7-1. And then all of a sudden, they lose to...
They'd probably want to beat Georgia. They'd probably want to beat one of those 2 teams.
Yeah, I mean,
I would
that's
say.
probably the goal there. You don't have to worry about Miami. Obviously, Miami is going to be probably a better team that you'll face. But as far as conference play goes, you don't have to worry about Miami. Florida is our number 2.
Texas, you've got arguably the Heisman frontrunner or one of the top highest odds to win the Heisman. Arch Manning. You also got Ryan Wingo, Quintravion Wisner, CJ Baxter, DeAndre Moore, whole bunch of other guys, plus Steve Sarkisian's offense. That may be one of the best overall offensive rosters you will see in the entire... That is the best overall. I'd be willing to bet that's the best overall offensive roster you'll see in the entire country, arguably. Most of the projected... Now, the biggest question mark for this team is going to be the O-line. Whole bunch of new dudes in there. The only benefit they have is a lot of those guys are from that second unit from the
Yep.
past season or two, and they've been practicing with Arch for the past 2 seasons. So they have experience playing with each other. Obviously, they don't necessarily have that huge experience playing against, SEC competition, but I mean, these are
Yeah.
guys who are going against the first team reps and going against Texas's defense and Texas's first team offense. There may not be a better team to be practicing against every single day
Yep.
than any other
Sure.
team in the country.
Especially
So
last year. Adding on to your O-line thing, like, I think Texas is probably doing the best job right now at keeping guys there. You just don't hear a lot coming out of Texas, and then you see that 4 of these 5 offensive linemen are new. Well, most of them went to the draft. Most of them graduated. So it's just, I think it's a really good thing that Steve Sarkisian is doing is he's keeping guys there. Like you said, just the experience in practice going against the starting defense last year, which we know was 1 or 2 in terms of best defenses in the country. So they'll have that experience, just not true game experience on the road in the SEC. So
yeah, I mean, they'll find out pretty quick against Ohio State. Now, this running back room, elite. Contravion Wisner, 1,400 yards total last year and 6 touchdowns. He's a receiving threat out of the backfield, and I think that's what Texas has done very well with their running backs the past few years. Obviously, C.J. Baxter, who went down with injury last year, 650 yards, 5 touchdowns, another 150 through the air as well. So the running back room is going to be elite. You got an elite receiving room, potential to, I wouldn't say elite receiving room, I'd say potential to be great to elite receiving room. You got Ryan Wingo, uh, obviously highly coveted player coming in. Got a lot of hype last year. Didn't get the same buzz Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith did, but he was in those conversations as best offensive, freshman wide receivers. Emmett Mosley, same thing, was a freshman at Stanford last year. Balled out for them, took his talent, said, "Hey, Stanford, this ain't it, man. I don't need this degree as much as you'll need me."
Quintravion Widener, more their receiving back. Um, I think Sark is one of those guys who likes to utilize the running back in the pass game, probably more so than any other OC that I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
just because the running back adds that extra layer of pass threat that a linebacker is not as athletic as most running backs are. So, um, good on him for returning. He was good last year, obviously. CJ Baxter returning from injury. You hope he's going to be good. You assume he's going to be good. How is he going to feel, when he gets that first bump? That's really what matters there. Um, Defensively, bring in Cole Brevard of Purdue, Travis Shaw of North Carolina, Hero Canoe from Ohio State, as well as I think they're the number 1 recruiting class in the country. Okay, so what else we got to say there?
You know how
Colin
else they got?
Simmons,
Yep, Colin
9
Simmons.
sacks, best linebacker in the country. Anthony Hill Jr., 16 and a half TFLs, 8 sacks. Michael Taff, Jelani McDonald, Malik Muhammad, Jalen Gilbo, back 4. I mean, defensively, you're pretty much back to where you were last year already. So you had Jade Barron and Makuba that you lost last year, and you replaced them with, well, number 1, Taff already had experience last year, especially in that game against Clemson. I think they talked about that storyline with Clemson's quarterback, Kate Klubnik, and Taff playing against each other probably about 50 times. Anyway, you still have Malik Muhammad, Jalen Gilbo. I mean, this defense is going to be pretty elite. It really just depends on how well they can mesh together, especially with all the transfers. But I do think they're going to be about as stacked as you can be defensively.
Dude, I'd say this team probably in the entire country is probably the most talent-filled roster in
Yeah,
terms of where guys are at. Not too many holes. Obviously, your hole is really just the offensive line, but it's also Texas, and they have been a factory at
yeah,
producing, getting guys ready. I don't think they're going to be having any problems, or at least any significant problems at the offensive line. Arch Manning obviously gets all the hype. Everyone's like, "Oh, let's hold our horses," but like, he's going to get the hype regardless. But it's Arch Manning. I mean,
yeah,
people are acting like he's so unproven and this and that. It's like he's shown you. I
yeah,
think he's already shown you playing enough. Obviously, he hasn't been playing against the elite of elite, but I don't have any reason to doubt this kid. I mean, I really don't. Top quarterback, sat there, got experience behind one of the best offensive minds, one of the better quarterbacks in the country the past few seasons. I don't think they're worried. I really do not think that there is a question mark
Yeah.
surrounding Arch Manning and his ability. Obviously,
Yeah.
again, top class of the country. They've got dudes that are just going to be keeping. They're going to be able to keep plugging in. Obviously, with all these teams, like every year goes by, dudes go out that prove themselves. New dudes come in ready to prove themselves. I mean, that's just college football.
I think the biggest question mark with this Texas team might, like, obviously offensive line, but I think they'll backfill just fine. I think experience at wide receiver might be the biggest question mark. Obviously, you got all the talent in the world: DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley to transfer from Stanford. It's just experience, and especially in tough environments. You're going to go to at Ohio State, at Florida, and at Georgia this year. Those are going to be 3 tough environments to play in. And I'm really like, obviously, Arch can throw the best ball you've ever seen, and it doesn't matter if the wide receiver drops the ball or he's just not on the same timing with the quarterback or whatever the case may be. So that might be my biggest question mark. Um, obviously, you got Red River week 7, then you host A&M week 14. The schedule's relatively easy as far as question marks go with every other team they face. So I think Texas being number 1, it's warranted, but it's also based on we think Arch Manning's the real deal. We think Steve Sarkisian's the real deal, and this defense is going to be pretty good.
I don't know. The more I think about it, the more like I think about each team, the more I question them. I'm
Yeah,
like, do I really believe in this team? You have to pick somebody,
yeah,
and it's like, who do I have the least questions about,
yep,
and how important those questions are, how big those questions are, and it's Texas. It is Texas. With
yeah,
Florida, like realistically, if it's Florida, shoot, I could put Florida number 1. But they also haven't proven themselves anywhere to
yeah,
the same level that Texas has. You
yeah.
know?
I think that's where my mind was at. Was like I could trust Alabama and Georgia a little more than I can
Mhm.
trust Florida.
Yep.
Problem is Georgia's got more questions. Alabama has a question at quarterback. Florida has one of the best quarterbacks in the country, bar none. So
Mhm.
it's tough to predict. I mean, I think going with the top 6, I think is really having us kind of question where everything's at, especially Big 12. ACC we're gonna have up next or Big 10. That's our order. Texas number 1, Florida number 2, Alabama number 3, Georgia 4, LSU 5, and A&M number 6. That is gonna be the SEC conference ranking prediction episode. Okay. June 24th. Okay. Do not come at us January 24th. Being like, what the heck are these rankings? Arch Manning got hurt. Freaking Gunnar Stockton is a Heisman. You know what I mean? Who cares? You know what I mean? We don't know. We're just predicting. Okay. So
Mhm.
that's going to be the episode. That's Minx. I'm Montana. This is Beyond the Line of Scrimmage. Deuces.